You lace up your shoes and head out for a run, legs moving, breathing steady, sweat starting to build. It feels like exercise. It feels modern. It might actually be a hunting weapon. Humans are strange runners when you really think about it. We're not fast. A house cat can outrun you over a short sprint. We're not powerful. Almost any four-legged predator could overpower you in seconds. And yet somehow humans became one of the best long-distance runners on the entire planet. Better than horses, better than wolves, better than almost anything with four legs and fur. So why would evolution build a slow, weak animal into an endurance machine? Daniel Lieberman, an evolutionary biologist at Harvard, has spent years building the case for an answer. Working alongside researchers, including Dennis Bramble, he argues that endurance running isn't just something the human body happens to be decent at, it's something the human body was specifically shaped for, piece by piece, over millions of years. Look at the evidence written directly into your anatomy. Long, springy Achilles tendons that store and release energy with every stride, a feature barely present in chimpanzees or other apes. A body covered in millions of sweat glands instead of thick fur, letting you cool down while moving instead of overheating. A large gluteus maximus, your biggest muscle, that does almost nothing when you walk, but fires hard with every running stride, stabilizing your torso mile after mile. A tall, narrow waist that can rotate somewhat independently from the hips, letting your arms and shoulders counter-swing while your legs drive forward, keeping your whole body balanced at speed. None of these traits help you sprint faster for 20 seconds. Every one of them helps you keep moving for hours. Here's where the hunting connection comes in. In hot, open environments, four-legged prey animals like antelope can sprint far faster than any human ever could. But sprinting generates enormous heat, and most animals can't sweat efficiently across their entire body the way humans can. They have to stop, pant, and cool down before running again. A human, sweating steadily, doesn't have to stop at all. Researchers studying modern hunter-gatherer groups, including the Sand People of the Kalahari Desert, have documented exactly this strategy in action. Hunters chase an animal like a kudu, not in a single desperate sprint, but in a long, steady pursuit through the hottest part of the day, walking, then jogging, then walking again, never letting the animal fully recover between bursts of speed. Eventually, the antelope's body simply can't dump heat fast enough. It collapses, overheated and exhausted, and the hunters who pace themselves the entire time finish the job with nothing more than a simple wooden spear or rock. Tracker and researcher Louis Liebenberg, who has spent decades studying sand hunters, documented just how much skill this actually requires. It's not simply about physical endurance. A hunter has to read footprints pressed into sand, notice a bent blade of grass, judge how fresh a trail is based on how quickly the edges of a print have started to crumble. Persistence hunting, done well, is really a combination of two demanding skills running at the same time: sustained physical output and constant, careful problem solving, hour after hour, under a brutal sun. Let's picture how a hunt like this might have actually unfolded. A small group sets out at midday, deliberately choosing the hottest hours, when prey animals are already stressed by heat and moving slowly to conserve energy. They spot a kudu grazing in the distance and begin moving toward it, not sprinting, just a steady, sustainable jog. The kudu bolts at first sight of them, sprinting a huge distance in seconds, easily outrunning the hunters and vanishing over a ridge. The hunters don't stop. They follow the tracks, reading broken grass, disturbed sand, faint hoof prints pressed into the dirt, piecing together the animal's path even when they can't see it directly. Eventually, they find the kudu again, standing in whatever shade it could find, breathing hard, overheated. It bolts again the moment it spots them. And again, the hunters simply keep moving toward it at that same steady pace. This repeats for hours. Each time the kudu runs, it dumps a burst of energy and heat it can't fully recover from before the hunters show up again. The hunters, meanwhile, are sweating steadily, staying relatively cool, burning energy at a much more sustainable rate. By the time the sun starts dropping, the kudu can barely manage more than a stumbling trot. It finally collapses, completely spent, and the hunt ends not with a dramatic sprint, but with hunters simply walking up to an animal that physically cannot run anymore. A 2024 study led by researcher Bruce Winterhalter at UC Davis uncovered far more evidence for this than scientists previously realized. Nearly 400 historical accounts of endurance hunting practiced across the globe. Among more than 100 Western North American societies surveyed decades earlier, over 80% turned out to have practiced some version of this technique. Here's the twist that makes this story more complicated and, honestly, more interesting. Not every researcher agrees this was ever common, or even the main way early humans hunted. Paleoanthropologist Henry Bunn at the University of Wisconsin has pushed back hard against the idea that endurance running defined early human hunting. He points out that the landscapes where our earliest ancestors evolved, places like East Africa's Great Rift Valley, weren't the flat, open plains this strategy works best on. They were mixed woodland and savanna, terrain that would have made tracking an animal for hours across ground exponentially harder. Bunn argues that ambush hunting, waiting patiently in dense brush, or even in the branches of trees, since many hooved animals rarely look up, may have been just as important, maybe even more common, for early hunters trying to get close to prey without a multi-hour chase. The disagreement isn't just academic nitpicking either. It touches something bigger. How much of what makes your body the way it is came from one specific survival strategy versus a whole toolkit of different approaches used depending on the terrain, the season, and the prey available that day. Ambush hunters would have needed patience and stillness. Endurance hunters would have needed stamina and heat tolerance. It's entirely possible early humans were skilled at both, switching strategies the same way a modern hunter might choose a different approach depending on the landscape in front of them. So the honest answer is that scientists are still actively arguing about this. Endurance running clearly happened and clearly mattered in some environments and for some groups. Whether it was the dominant hunting strategy that shaped human evolution, or one useful tool sitting alongside ambush tactics, tracking skill and traps, is still being debated in academic journals right now. What isn't up for debate is what your body carries around today, whether or not you've ever chased anything in your life. Those long Achilles tendons, that efficient sweating system, that oversized glute muscle firing with every stride, they're still there, quietly built for exactly this kind of pursuit, whether you use them to chase dinner or just chase a personal best on a Sunday morning run. Marathon runners today cover distances that would have easily let a persistence hunter's ancestors track down prey and walk home again, all using the same basic hardware, just aimed at a finish line instead of an exhausted animal. So the next time you're a few miles into a run, chest working steadily, sweat cooling your skin, legs falling into that familiar rhythm, you're not just getting exercise, you're running on hardware that may have once been used to run something else into the ground entirely. If discoveries like this make you look at your own body differently, stick around. There's a lot more about how you were built that's still worth uncovering.